Good evening, everybody. Welcome to episode 165 of So What's Been Happening. Today, it is a Tuesday evening in Melbourne, Australia, and it is Tuesday, bright and early morning in Canada. So it's nice to catch up with Kerry Goulet, one of my good buddies and show absolute favorites. I just want to touch on the show that we were going to have or a special guest on this morning, which we've had to postpone. I just want to highlight this guy's incredible effort. This kind of the reason this show was starting in relation to mental health and conversations around mental health. This guy's got an incredible challenge he's undertaken. It's 100 kilometers a day for 100 days. I just want to play a little intro into Jack and what he's up to, and then we'll talk about rescheduling him.
The craziest thing you've ever seen. His name is the Crazy Running Man.
Crazy running man.
Running Man. Crazy Running Man. You're upping the ante
100 kilometres a day.
for 100 days.
10,000
Look out.
from Cairns to Melbourne. Cairns to Victoria.
Way down to Melbourne on foot.
Marathons a day.
I honestly I'm cynical about this. I don't want to put cold water on this.
But you can't train for something like this. Your body might fuck in, but I'm going to give it my best shot. Suck into it again.
Thanks for doing what you're doing. It's an inspirational story. Definitely Forrest Gumpish, isn't it? It is a bit. Crazy Running Man.
The Crazy Running Man. That absolutely is true. Just to touch on where Jack is up to. So he's a late scratching, and the reason for it today, he's struggling a little bit physically more than mentally. We're into day about 88 today, so he's very much nearing the finish line. That's 8,800 kilometers, if you want to add that up quickly. Incredible effort. He's a little bit sore, but the show must go on in his eyes. So what he's done, he's taken a little breather. He has gone into a bit of rehab, got massage, done all those things, ice baths, done all the things you can, get a bit of fuel in. And he's actually back running from about 5 o'clock this afternoon after running most of the day. And he is pushing out the last 30 Ks as we speak. So he's going to finish around 9:30 tonight, then get up again and do it all again tomorrow. So an incredible effort, Jack. Mate, it's no problem that you've had to reschedule with us. We are ready for you anytime. So feel free to hit us up as soon as you're ready, and we'll talk about the incredible stuff you're doing in amongst mental health as well. And we just want to push this little message with the 100 hundreds for miles was for smiles. But for tonight, we are going to talk to the great Kerry Goulet, the Gooch, as he's affectionately known. He's been a good friend of mine, and we are going to chat just a little bit about mental health, about things like challenges, mental challenges that come up. We're going to talk about loss and dealing with loss. That's always a tough one. So we're gonna dig a little tonight, but it's very early for Gooch, so we've got to turn him on and let him warm up a little bit, sharpen those batteries a little bit. So let's bring him up for a quick chat, and we'll see where everyone's at this bright and early morning. It's around 4 o'clock in the morning, I think, from Led to Believe. Welcome, Gooch.
Hey, nothing this can't solve, kids. Nothing this can't solve. And this is solely coffee with sugar and milk.
Yeah, it's isn't it? Isn't it? The challenge we had this morning was to wake up.
It wasn't. That was not the challenge. The challenge is we didn't have enough water in the kettle. So I booked. We have one of those Keurigs with Tim Hortons. You know, I'm a Tim Horton lover, and of course, you're in the city of the most famous coffee in the world. And I just can't get there yet. Listen, I've only been there for 3 years. I think I'll be ready by the end. But long and short of the coffee situation is, you know, when you get a kettle, you don't know how much is in it. So you put it in and get half of water in it and it's not ready. So you had to plug the kettle in again. And so that's why I was a little bit late. But what an incredible story. Listen, we're going to dig deep into this one. I got some things I'd like to talk to you about this before we get going. But first and foremost, well, you've been doing 165 shows. You know, I through COVID and through all the challenges that COVID brought, I did in 365 days, I did over 400 shows, along with Paul Rosen, of course, who we all know is one of the top inspirational speakers, who I got to see the other night for the first time live on his mental health talk. Wow, it blew me out of the water. But a compliment to you, Aaron. 165 episodes, incredible. And I've watched, I bet you I've got about 20 in me, because it is pretty early in the morning here when you're doing it. But compliment to you, buddy. You've done a great job. And wow, what an advancement. Look at how great you have come, and how great this show has become. So, hey, kudos to you, buddy.
Appreciate those kinds words, and throwing one back to you. If you remember, very vividly, I asked you, how the hell do you do this, Gooch? How do you get online? How do you talk? How do you interview people? So you inspired me, mate, to get in amongst and do this. So we've got about 4 or 5 shows coming up into Christmas, and then we're going to have a little break for a while, and we're going to set and reset as we head towards show 200, which is exciting. So who knows? We might run 1 kilometer for our 200th show. Who knows? Incredible effort what Jack's done.
I could do it in a car. Hey, listen, I want to, if you don't mind, as we get into the talking, there's lots to dig into, but one of the things I wanted to say, and I was honored this year to be inducted into the Indigenous Hockey or Sports Hall of Fame in Winnipeg. And what was really amazing is I got to be inducted in, obviously, one of the legends. I can't even put myself in the same sentence as this man. His name is Terry Fox, doing something similar, or did something similar to what we're obviously seeing here. It is Terry Fox had a run, and his goal was to run from one end of the country, Nova Scotia, all the way through to BC. I don't know if you've ever heard this. It was for cancer. He's obviously had cancer, lost his leg, and just like Paul, wanted to inspire people, and he did not realize how big of an impact it would be. He inspired a nation, and he got halfway through his trip, ended up in Thunder Bay, where I had the honor to play ice hockey and win an Allen Cup, and I got to see his trophy, his statue many times. This guy ran 42 kilometers a day, which is 26 miles, for 143 days, for 5,373 kilometers, 3.3 miles. Incredible. But to think he did it with one leg, and cancer returned in Thunder Bay, and he lost his life doing this. It has become one of the largest charities of all time in Canada. So I tip my hat off. What a story. Anybody that would put himself or herself through the challenges of what this would mean. I can't even drive a car 100 kilometers a day, let alone try and run it. So kudos, man. Wow.
Absolutely. So just a little touch on how I met Jack. It was actually going down to meet with the planners of the wedding for my daughter Olivia and George next March. And I was down at Albert Park where the Formula One Grand Prix is.
Right.
We happened to see the boys running past, and I said to my son-in-law to be, George, I think that's a Running Man guy. And he said, oh, no, I don't think so. Anyway, we went into the reception area and we had the meeting, and we came out, and the boys had just finished right out the front of where we were. And so I walked out. It's an absolute chance meeting, but I'd been following him on Instagram and all his updates. So I actually walked up to him and thanked him for everything he's doing to inspire so many people. And he's such one of those just genuine, honest guys that said, oh, it's not all about me, mate. And he's such a humble guy that, yes, it isn't all about him. And I said, you're right. But it takes a great guy to put together an incredible team of people that people are drawn to, you know. And so what he's done is an incredible effort. It finishes December 15, Gooch. It's finishing at Albert Park. It's going to be huge. This is kind of the running he's currently doing in and around Melbourne. He's actually run all the way from Cairns up in Queensland and all the way down to Melbourne, and then finishing off. So he's combining a whole community at the moment, which is an incredible effort, raising money for mental health. So shout out to you, Jack. Keep doing it, mate. You've only got a few more days to go. easy for us to say. We're just sitting here watching the challenge, but we can't wait to have a chat to you in the next week or so.
Well, he's got a big fan here now in Canada, and I will now start spreading the story because I know Paul will jump on top of this. I want to just give you a little more insight on some of the things that sounds so challenging in this thing. Back in 2001, I was involved with a group that was going to do this big, huge event for the Mediterranean Games. I won't bore you with all the details, but it was an incredible opportunity. While I was playing in Germany, a German woman had in Tunisia had seen the story about me up in Canada. She was from Hamburg, read the Hamburg Bild, read the story about what I was doing and all that sort of stuff. And she invited me down to Tunisia, which, wow, just here I am, a kid from Winnipeg, Manitoba, traveling the world because of a pair of skates. And their concept was that we were going to inline skate through the Sahara Desert and come out and end it into this big, huge event that was just surrounded by the Tunis or these Mediterranean Games. Mediterranean Games happen every year after the Olympics, and it's all the countries in the Mediterranean. Anyways, crazy idea. They flew me down there, and what they were going to do is we're going to put an ice rink, and people would be able to skate in this whole thing. And so all the planning, everything was going. I was getting Alan Frew to be a part of it. We did a CD with Healing Hands. He wrote a specific song for it. I think the charity was 2626 from the Tunisian president at the time, and it was all done. And you know, somebody would say, "Gooch, where are you getting these crazy stories?" The CD is real. It's real. There's no question. And Alan Frew was going to sing. It did sing the song. And in the background, I was backup vocals for 26. One day you got to listen to it. If I haven't already done it, I don't know if I ever told you this crazy story. So anyways, long and short of it, I was watching this lady plan, and I was flying from Hamburg to Tunis every couple of months, I think, or a couple of weeks. And unfortunately, it was in 2001, it was going to happen. And of course, we all know my father got very sick. That didn't happen. And the gentleman that was helping organize it was her husband. He ended up dying of a brain tumor. Crazy story. But the reason I tell you that is I watched her put this planning together by herself. And, you know, to do what he is doing, what Jack is doing, it's just not, you don't just put on a pair of runners and start running. You need an absolute team behind you to plan each stage. And of course, maybe he's struggling right now through maybe some blisters or what. So they had all this all organized, and Alan Frew was going to come along and he was going to play his guitar and sing the song at every stop. So one day we'll really get into a story like that. But I saw how much time and energy. And you're talking about mental health, the anguish he must be going through every day, that commitment to wake up and finish it, because there are a lot of people that say, no, there's no way he's going to be able to do it. And that in itself is a huge burden on the person. So, Jack, we're all behind you. I hope you finish it. I'll be cheering you just as loud from Canada. And I know that I'll get a bunch of people here now excited about it. So, hey, thank you. Hey, I'd love to have met Jack. I will meet Jack. Looking forward to it. And all right, let's get into it.
All right. So 2 podcasts born in COVID, Gooch. That's what we're celebrating tonight. And the reasons we did that, I guess you'd say, were kind of around mental health. We wanted to bring people together. We wanted to have chats. Let's face it, we were bored out of our brains. And when the world got shut down, effectively, the life, especially for someone like yourself that is on the road all the time, makes money, and for charity, its own charity, your charity, stopconcussions.com, but also multiple charities, and you're such a genuine, generous giver as well, Gooch, to be grounded and to sit in isolation effectively with only really your wife, Tony, to sit by your side and everyone else on Zoom in the outside world. That's kind of why we kicked off. That's why I kicked off as well. Quick push for Gooch Live. This is the one you've got to jump on. And it's kind of formed and reformed in amongst a couple of variations amongst time. But Gooch, this is a great one. And also the one you celebrate with Rosie as well.
Yes.
Great friend of ours, Paul Rosen.
Yeah.
So we'll touch on that. But yeah, mental health is such a big component of life. It's an still undervalued term. that we call mental health. Everyone sits in the mental health banner or bubble, but it's important that we're going to call this Tune In Tuesdays. You've had all sorts of variations in amongst your show as well of trying to call a campaign effectively of chats and conversations.
Yep.
We're just going to try and commit to it once a month at least, but it's
Fantastic.
always going to be top of mind. But to do it once a month, I thank you for joining me to have a chat on this episode.
Well,
And by the way, you need one of these, Gooch.
I know. I broke my last one. No, I'm getting some done for Rosie and Gooch and Rosie show. We had the conversation yesterday on our show, talking about should it be the Gooch and Rosie show or the Rosie Gooch show, and he did remind me that I am 1 year older than him, so he's kind to his elders. The actual Gooch Live show didn't start out of COVID. A lot of people don't know that. It started with a guy named Graham Roustan from the Hockey News, which is a big publication here, which talks about all NHL and hockey around the world. And Graham's a good friend of mine, and he just purchased the Hockey News and had built this brand new studio and was really now moving from that print version to the digital world. As we know, it started to morph into people. The Hockey News was like the Bible, ice hockey, as you know it. And people would go to the bathroom and read it while they were busy. And then he realized the digital world was coming. So he started to transform into the digital world. And he said, wow, you know what? Sports Illustrated has come on board. I don't know. I'm sure you know the publication, but it's a you know, again, a Bible of sport in the United States. And he said, I need to have a presence online. So he had a couple of really good podcasts or really good sports journalists that were heavy into the analytics. And so he got started with the shows, and he needed somebody that had a little bit more ability to grab the shovel and you know, put out the words of not specifically the analytics of the game, just explaining to him as a hockey player what it was all about. So it actually started with Graham Roustan. We were doing it downtown with Stephen Ellis, a great producer, and now obviously doing his own stuff. And COVID hit, and that's where I was forced to go into the basement of my house. You mentioned Tony Meal. Who wouldn't you want to be if I had to be stuck on an island with somebody other than yourself, of course, and Paul? It would be her. Oh, and Seitel could come too. But she really grounded me and allowed me to do what I did. And you're right. You know, we were looking at how we could keep ourselves busy. But then along the way, I realized that God gave me the gift of gab through my mother. And as yourself, you're very good. You're very articulate on how you present yourself. And because I wasn't formally educated, I always say the joke, you know, I got grade 12, I passed grade 6 twice. I was worldly educated, traveling the world through my hockey experiences, my skates being my passport to the world. Graham just knew that I was able to deliver something a little bit different, not that typical, and no disrespect to it, you know, percentages on shots on net and what does that mean for a goal scorer, but talking about the mental part of the game, you know, the goal scorer when he's in a slump, you know, at an AFL where one of your guys that's, you know, maybe had 5 tries in a row, and then all of a sudden it just stops, you know, the faucet turns. Why? And we could analyze that. So that's how the show got started. Then, of course, my good friend Paul Rosen, who was as bored as I was. And I'll tell you, you have to sometimes watch what you wish for. So as we were going through this, I started the hug campaign. I think I probably sent you one of these pucks with a hug, and then the heart, you know, just to say, hey, you need a hug. And we won't get into it today, but that hug campaign actually has become one of the craziest stories of my life. Obviously, with some issues, hugging people is not always the best thing to do, but I'm still doing it. I think the world needs more hugs, and I think we can, you know that better than anybody. So yeah. That's how it all got started. Now, Gooch Live does Gooch Live in 1:29. Paul Rosen, my number is 29. Paul Rosen does Rosie in 1:57. It all comes from Peter Young, who is doing a thing called In Just a Minute. So I've learned a lot along the way, and wow, what a journey, and it's been great to follow you.
It's and Darren's 100% right. A good friend of mine. Who doesn't love a hug? If you don't love a hug, you don't exist. You need a hug in your life. That's for sure.
Yes,
But Gooch, I just want to tie on our connection with you yourself and being a Canadian, and hockey and ice hockey for us. Let's touch on this magic moment. This must make you still look back and feel so good.
Oh, Jesus.
This moment back in Sydney, what year was that now?
2015.
Yeah.
2016.
And then a great moment getting to take the ice with Gretz as well.
Incredible. If you don't mind me commenting on that picture,
Sure.
you'll see the three Braggs. God, his name skips me. It shouldn't. He's a phenomenal guy that's holding the microphone. Right beside him is a guy named Dirk Grunman. He recently passed on his 100th birthday. I was walking through the airport, believe it or not, in Amsterdam just this year. And as I'm walking through it, I've got the Wayne Gretzky bag. I think you remember the one with the Hungry Jacks, and I got a stick over my shoulder, and I was going to play a celebrity game in Greyfrath, Germany. And as I'm walking through the airport, there's this tall, roughly the same age as me, a guy looking at me, and all of a sudden he points to me and says, "Hey, were you part of that Wayne Gretzky event in Sydney?" And think about that. I'm in Amsterdam. And somebody picks this out. First, how did you know I played hockey? Oh, I had a hockey stick. And right beside it says Wayne Gretzky celebrity game or whatever in Sydney. And I stopped, of course, as I usually do. And we started yakking away. This guy ends up being, again, I apologize, I don't have the name. I didn't know you were going to show that picture. We got started to yak about life and everything. And then all of a sudden I said, wait a second, how did you know about the Wayne Gretzky? He said, Dirk Grunman, who you saw in that picture, was my mentor coach. He taught me how to play ice hockey here in Holland. And this guy was a legend. Like, he was the Gretzky, the true Gretzky of Holland. He wore the most amount of caps, I guess you call it, very similar to the sport, soccer, most amount of caps for the national team, the Dutch national team. He broke a bunch of records in the professional league, in one of the leagues that I played in Germany, who played against some of the teams that he played. We never played against each other. But how small this huge planet of ours is, and you bring that picture up, and of course me getting a chance to meet somebody who actually knew Dirk Grunman. He dropped the puck for the Wayne Gretzky Classic, and he actually dropped the puck, if you recall, you may or not remember this, but he actually dropped the puck for the NHL game between Arizona and the Los Angeles Kings just recently back in Melbourne. So hell of a story, hell of a picture.
Sure is. But it's one of those moments that ties our countries together now, and it's a beautiful moment, raising money for Stop Concussions, plus so many other charities along the way, including growing our game of the great game of ice hockey in Australia. So thank you, Gooch, for everything you've done there. Long may it continue. It's tough after COVID to get things up and going and bouncing again, but all the energy to you, and let's still try and the people want it back. I know it's a bigger challenge now than probably ever in relation to getting big events like that together, but it will happen one day.
Yes, it will. You were a big part of it, along with your wife. You're so giving of your time and energy, and we had some fun, let me tell you, and there's more fun to come along.
We did. All right, we're going to touch on a few mental health kind of subjects today. I know you've written down a couple as well to kind of talk through, but it was just one of those moments that I reflected coming into Christmas. It's a bit of a tough time for a lot of people during this time, coming into Christmas, isolation for a lot of people that don't have families, and there's a lot of thinking time, a lot of quiet time, a lot of thinking time. We can potentially overthink a lot of things, and I think that's one of our greatest probably the words of destruction on ourselves is overthinking things. But the most important part is we're just going to have a little chat about those kind of things tonight. And just there may be something that someone picks up on that's a little use or a tool or a conversation that they might reflect on and just think about these moments. And we've had this chat and make a difference in a dark time for someone.
So I could share with you just the other day driving in the car. We have a radio station, 98.1, that plays just Christmas music as of a couple days ago. And I'm in the car driving, and a song pops up on the radio, one that brought me back to my childhood, one that brought me back to my mom and dad, who I have lost both of them, very, very close to my parents. And then the emotions took over. 65-year-old man driving a car and crying like it's crazy. But it was not about my parents. It was about a sibling, my sister, who I lost to mental health issues, drugs and alcohol, a beautiful woman. And it never goes away. Maybe some of the pain dissipates, but mental health runs in my family. On my mother's side, there is documented bipolar. I think I was very blessed in the sense that I got some of the craziness of my mother, but I got the calmness from my father. Unfortunately, my sister did not get that same gene. She ended up through a long battle. It took her 15 years to battle through the demons that actually took her life at the end of it. And I just want to say that people that are out there at this time, feel those emotions. Allow yourself to cry. There is no judgment, or there should be no judgment on you being able to show how you feel. We are humans. Humans are made to, as we mentioned, love and care. And at a time of a world where we have so much conflict still, obviously down the border, we know what's going to go on for the next 4 years. It's going to be exciting, and we'll get into politics, but this world is on the teeter-totter. And so I think when it comes to mental health, we all have challenges. And I say it best, I think, in some of the things that I've done over the years. Don't judge the book by the cover. Read the story within it so you understand what the cover means. And I think that's so important. So if you are struggling, you've got great people like Aaron, myself. You've got numbers, obviously around the world. They share mental health numbers. There are people there that want to help. So if you're holding on by that string, know that there's somebody there to throw you the rope. So I hope we can touch a little bit about that as we go through the show.
Yeah, definitely. Great words. You're 100% right. I think there's still a big stigma around, especially men and tears, and that it's not something you do, and a conversation in relation to weakness. But we really broke that stigma and started to break that stigma at this end with Jack Davis, who we chatted to a little while ago with It's Called a Cry campaign. And it was a great chat with him. And that's an ongoing thing. And hopefully generations to come can be a little bit more emotive. It's going to be a battle, and it is a battle for all of us still on this earth right now. But there's so many positives to come out of life, and they can't all be positive. But there's a really important quote that I kind of came across recently. Is yesterday is heavy, put it down. And it's a really powerful kind of statement that we do carry so much emotional baggage around. I think it's important to still sit there and reflect on it. I think you're 100% right, Gooch, and let those emotions come in and go. Come in, talk to them, celebrate the happiness and the good times. And absolutely, there's a heap of tough times in amongst that time as well. But sometimes those really tough times bring a lot of unity as well, whether that be inside families. And you may not have always been, the best of friends in some relationships or the best in a relationship, but they talk about in sickness and in health. And that's one of those terms that you don't just say when you get married or have a chat to become close to someone. It's one of those things that can bind you and bring you close together. So hopefully sickness, obviously we all want to recover from sicknesses, but sadly some of these sicknesses and these demons that are cancers and mental health sadly take us away, which are incredibly disappointing. We're not all here forever, but that's the most important part, is to live today and live for tomorrow. I sit there and reflect sometimes, and I think about today, yesterday, and tomorrow. And they say the conversation in marine around sport and to get the best out of yourself is to try and stay in those moments and in the moment. It's easily said, isn't it, Gooch? But not always that easy to do.
I'd love to share a story. I don't think I've ever told this story live. And listen, when you're 65 years old and have been as well traveled as I have, through a game, through a sport that is obviously in your country is still growing. We've seen that. But around the world, ice hockey is obviously the Canadian sport, very big now in the United States, all throughout the Scandinavian countries. It was back in 1988. My journey, I won't bore you with all the details, but I was a very good hockey player, a very emotional hockey player, wore my emotions on the sleeve. I'd been in the nightclub business, believe it or not, started at 22, and learned that industry, learned about drugs and alcohol, obviously through that time frame, watched a lot of lives be destroyed through all of that. And as I was going through my hockey playing career, I never touched drugs, never will, never have. And through that time frame, I got a chance at 27 to move to Thunder Bay and play for the Thunder Bay Twins. And we were challenging for what's called the Allen Cup, a very big trophy, almost like the Goodall Cup in your country. And I had got involved with a nightclub in Thunder Bay. That's how I got moved there. And I remember going into the finals, and the coach, again, I was only on the team for 1 year. They had already won 3 championships in a row, and I was being brought in to be a goal scorer. And the coach, because I was a very offensive player, sometimes not the greatest on defense, he decided one game to sit me. And I can remember being in the dressing room when all the guys were there, and I was pumped to play the game. And he reads off the names of the guys that are not going to play, and the last guy he mentions was me. And I had a breakdown right in front of 24 guys. And I was in tears. Like, I was absolutely in tears. And in 1988, you just didn't do that. It was not something that was a sure sign of weakness. And a guy named Jamie McDonald, the captain, or no, I don't think he was a captain. He was an assistant captain. Saw me going through these desperate times, actually grabbed me and took me out of the dressing room and, calmed me down. And that was my first understanding that, hey, as a man, you don't show tears. That's a sign of weakness. And I lived through that for many years. And I learned a lesson that at that time, we weren't ready for that. We weren't ready for people to show that inner emotion. What was crazy about it is the next game I was in the lineup and had probably arguably one of my best games, and we ended up winning the Allen Cup. So there's a learning in it all. And don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to show your emotions.
Yep, 100%. Great words, Gooch. And emotions can be not always negative, pretty positive moment, this one.
Well, that's
what a great shot.
I never got the chance to play in the National Hockey League. It was my dream. It would be like playing for your favorite AFL team in Melbourne, or the Demons. I can't remember our team anymore.
Yeah, it's a Demons.
Go Demons. Didn't I start off with the Bulldogs and you paid me money to go with the Demons?
And the Saints. So you've had a few.
Yeah, true. Yes, I did. But I think what's really important to understand is that you have a dream, you have a goal. I didn't make mine. I wanted to play in the National Hockey League, wanted to play for the Winnipeg Jets, just like you probably wanted to play for, let's say, the Demons, and you never quite got there. But I was able to transfer that into winning the Allen Cup in Thunder Bay in 1988. And that picture was winning the German 3rd Division championship. Of course, it's not the NHL, but it's certainly a championship in 1992. Challenges to win that cup were immense. I was a player coach, and that's a picture of me being in the Wintergarten in Timmendorfer with the crowd, and my mom and dad were actually in that crowd as they interviewed me after winning this cup. And thankfully to a guy named Mark McKay, who I just went back and saw in Calgary. And I'll tell you what, sharing the stories, it's like you fishermen, right? The fish starts out this size,
sure,
but it actually became this big. It's just like that in any sport. The stories just become better, more glorified. We live in the past. you mentioned, understanding. I truly, truly believe these words. If you don't know your past, you can't know your future. Stay in the present and endure and enjoy and engage with your past, because it will give you life lessons that allow you to be able to carve out a good future. So that was one of those moments. Thank you for sharing that picture. It brings back very, very fond memories.
And also, just to touch on the last part of the sport, there is an incredible moment for you here. A retired jersey going up into the rafters. This is every boy's dream to see at the finish of a career. You see as a kid, you see jerseys go up and you think, wow, that old guy, he's retired. But it's so significant of an incredible era of sport, or decades of sport for some people, and great to be honoured, no doubt, with the 29 jersey being raised there.
Mark and I actually had this conversation just a few weeks ago in Calgary about it. We were very good friends in Winnipeg growing up. He was younger than I think he's 5 years younger. He followed my career. I obviously followed his as we were going through the minors and the juniors. He's probably the best player I ever played with, and that's not diminishing, Andy Pritchard or Todd Johnson or any of these great players that I played with along the way. But Mark was just one of those true competitors. And the other gentleman, Marvin Glaser, who was in Timmendorf at the time, we became aligned in that league. And again, it doesn't matter the level. We were just the best of the best at that time in that particular league. And to have the recognition from the fans and the ownerships and all the players to be given that honor to raise the jersey. And with that comes good stories, bad stories. My mother had the opportunity to travel with me, and my sister never, ever got to see me play in Germany. So she got to witness this, and she brought her young son. And I won't get into the details of it, but that was probably the biggest moment of my life. My father had already passed just recently, actually. And when they raised that jersey, all the emotions. Marco Sticknote was the guy that presented it, a very dear friend of mine. And as the jersey was raising up, you could almost feel the years of getting up at 6 a.m, my mother driving me to the outdoor rink at -40. My father worked shift work. She would drop me off. My dad would pick me up. The orchestra that required to move me around in those days to allow me to be the player that I was. I witnessed it. And at that final moment, I got to look in the crowd and see my sister and her son, my nephew, and my mother with smiles that were bigger than the moon, was what really brought my understanding of what I had accomplished. It wasn't about me. Listen, we all have egos. We all want to be the best at what we do. I was the best of what I was given. I maybe didn't reach the pinnacle of where I wanted to get to, but I got to where I needed to get to and understand the meaning of life. And the meaning of life was my mother and father paid dearly for me to have a pair of skates and learn how to play. And I was able to share that with my sister and my nephew. And a few years later, I got to go back at 52. I was short 3 points for 2000 in Germany. And I got to go back and revisit and play a game, a professional game. They brought the jersey down from the crowd. I got to go out and play with these young kids that, 25 years old, and here I am 52, and nobody gave me a chance of doing that, thanks to a guy named Andy Marley. He had orchestrated this incredible event. Yes, the league was even lower than where I had played, but the significance of it was my brother and his son were able, who never again saw me play professionally over in Germany, got to come. And on my 2000 point, I needed 3 and I got it. My brother was sitting over the back of the the VIP looking down, and he brought his camera. And as I scored the 2,000 point, my brother took the picture, and there you see the puck going in the net. I'll tell you what, goosebumps for me. And thank you for sharing that picture, because highlight of my life. One of the, if I could just say, all the hard work had paid off, but all the moments for those fans that had invested. Aaron, as a professional athlete, people actually paid money to watch me play. I would take time out for every one of them to sign an autograph, take a picture in a restaurant, all the things that you see professional athletes today go through. I lived through a pair of skates. I played a game I loved. I would have played for free, for God's sakes. Don't tell them now, but incredible. And my passion for the game was outlived by all the fans. They were living their lives through mine. And there's no better compliment in life than to have fans be a part of that journey. And Timmendorfer Strand, Greyfrath, Power Panthers, the Hamburg Crocodiles, Hanover Indians, the Hanover Scorpions. Man, I've been blessed.
Yeah, you sure have, Gooch. But your passion for sport and the passion of the game of ice hockey, like everything, does come at a cost, I guess you'd say. And sadly, one of those costs that you went through in your career, like you've seen so many others do, and not just in hockey, but the world of concussions. And your life is dedicated now into pushing and researching stop concussions and the journey. But you're also able to combine some incredible moments like this, teaching the young kids of today. I absolutely love this picture, as I'm sure you do, Gooch. And to be able to bring kids into the world and also onto tours, giving kids hope, it's a beautiful moment that only someone like yourself, Gooch, that is larger than life, let's face it, but it needs people that are as passionate as you are about their sports. And every sport's got them, but you're the one for ice hockey for me, and so many other people around the world. So, mate, thanks for everything you're doing, and please continue to enjoy doing it.
Can you bring that picture up with the kids again? You should see the picture of me trying to get up off the ground. That was just last year. That was actually just a few months ago. I had hurt my knee. I actually hurt my knee in a practice with the Melbourne Ice, and had taken a puck. I don't know if you remember it, but he's here. Nicholas Startsev is here. And a few weeks while I was in Melbourne last year, Nicholas was out in the morning. It was like 7 a.m, and Nicholas was, learning how to take a slap shot. And I had come out, I had forgot to put my helmet on, which is dumb in the best of times. And here I come skating towards it. And I think it was Johnny Onzo, if I'm not mistaken, one of our imports, was teaching Nicholas how to take a slap shot. And Nicholas had not got it off the ice quite often. And so we had a goalie, and here I come, and there's a bunch of pucks. And as I come, hey, what's going on? All of a sudden, Nicholas takes his slap shot, hits it right off the goalpost. Of course, our goalie doesn't save it. Hits the goalpost, and here it comes. It hits me right on the side, and I twisted my knee as I was going down, and there's blood spurting everywhere. It was crazy. Paul Rosen was with me. I come in the dressing room. There's blood everywhere. I open up, and he said, "God, you look like Jason from Halloween." And there's blood everywhere, and it ended up being just a little cut. I needed it glued or something like that, but I had twisted my knee. And so I played in that game. I'm 65 years old, just a couple months ago. And I played, certainly not at the speed I did when I was there. Incredible fans. It was for inclusion in sport, diversity in hockey. A guy named Martin Hoon does a great job in bringing this inclusivity, which you just saw with some of the Indigenous kids there. So I had to be a part of this. But the reason why I was on my knees is because I wanted to be able to be with the kids and chat and not be over top of them and not being true feeling. And once I got down there, I realized, holy shit, I'm not going to get up. So I had to grab one of the kids and say, listen, and of course I have to do it in German. Hey, just like help this old man get up. And I wish there was a picture of it because it was priceless.
Yeah, it's there's always a picture behind the picture, or a story behind the picture, very much so. But it's a beautiful moment. And as I touched on, the world of concussions, Gooch, brings its challenges. That's for sure.
Yeah.
You are incredibly generous with your time, and so is Stop Concussions as an organisation to help so many people that are struggling through things that have been concussions, trauma that's come from concussion, and the effects and long-standing effects that can happen with concussions. And we must touch on that. It's not just a sports-related injury, right? It's life these days, and every part of life, including from the elderly to the young. More documented concussions. It's become very much a topic and heavy topic now inside Australia. We're going to have a chat about concussions in the next month or so. Hopefully, we can try and do it before Christmas. To have a chat a little bit more in depth about it. But just touch on some of the, I suppose, daily issues or struggles that relate to mental health that are kind of long-standing effects or can be effects of in that have come from potential issues from concussion.
Well, I'll tell you what, you've done a great job in pulling up some pictures and some of my history. And I think of the next show, I've got only one video. It's with my sister going back to the mental health thing. I'd love to show that to your listeners when we touch again upon mental health issues. But when it comes to concussions, I was blessed, believe it or not, to be concussed. I know it sounds absolutely crazy, but it gave me a life journey. And though at the time when I suffered what I thought was my third documented concussion, I realized learning more about it, it would end up probably being north of 12 in my lifetime. Seeing those black spots in front of my eyes, not realizing after taking a hit that was what it was. Through my trials and tribulations in hockey, it was actually in in Eschweiler, only a few weeks into my landing in Germany, did I take a fall into the boards, where as I slid in, going head first, obviously, which is far more dangerous, I was able to turn my body and I hit along the side and did some damage to my shoulder. But I was told, still today don't remember it all, but I was knocked out. And I remember waking up in the hospital. So think about it. I'm injured in a hockey game. How many minutes it took for the ambulance to get there, to get me off the ice, into an ambulance, and into a floor in the hospital. 30 minutes? I don't recall it, but I do recall waking up. And again, I was only in Germany for 3 or 4 weeks. And as I woke up, there were 3 German doctors standing over top of me, yakking in German at that particular time. I only knew Hogan's Heroes German. I don't know if you remember the show, but it was absolutely incredible with Schultz. And so that was my limited German. I kept hearing Schulte, 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 and shoulder means obviously shoulder. And I knew I had a shoulder injury, but it ended up also being a concussion. But we didn't know that. They weren't focused on my head. They were focusing on what they could see and not understand. And so that was the start of my journey of understanding that we needed to do more. So over the next 4 months, I continued on playing. With these signs and symptoms that we now know are signs and symptoms. But at that time, I didn't. Fatigue, dizziness, moodiness, all these confusion. I just thought it was part of being a pro athlete over in Germany with jet lag and the pressures of being an import. And over that winter, I suffered a incident on the Autobahn going about 200 miles an hour. It felt like I was having a heart attack. My girlfriend at the time, we stopped the car. We raced to the hospital. They did every test known to man. I had tubes all over the place stuck in me. I felt like a pincushion, and they ended coming back saying, there's nothing wrong with you. We just don't see any issues here. And that was in Germany. A month later, I flew home back to Canada, and that's when the issues from concussions reared its ugly head. I went through depression, anxiety, suicidal thoughts, never attempting, but knowing and watching and seeing this thing go through. They put me into, I remember the doctor, specifically Dr. Armstrong, a psychiatrist. They put me into a clinic for a couple of days to analyze it back in 1988. We didn't really know and understand concussions at the time. And he came back and said, you know what, you're suffering from anxiety, and we're going to put you on a pill called depresamine, and this is going to help you get through it, and we've got to get you back to Germany. So 3 months later, after this episode in Winnipeg, I jumped on a flight. My father actually flew with me back to Germany, and I was ending up being a player coach for the first time. And when I was there, my dad basically had to wipe my bum. I could do nothing except play hockey. I'd stand on the ice. I knew what was going on, but when I got off the ice, there was a lot of issues. And so that was the real start of my journey with concussions. And as I went through more and more and suffered a couple other ones, my third document in Timmendorfer Strand, I was blessed to not do more damage than I did. And I got help. And I had a great team of people around me. They got me through it, and I'm blessed for it. I know there are consequences. I know that obviously there are changes in my life that are of a result of this injury, but I wanted to understand it more, so I educated myself through Dr. Mickey Collins out of the Boston University, Dr. Robert Cantu, and my mentor, Chris Nowinski, who has taken on the challenge of CTE, chronic traumatic encephalopathy. And I really started to educate myself. And I was a guy that I had not read 5 books in my lifetime. And then I really started to understand I needed to know more. And then I met Keith Primeau, who then himself, Keith was arguably one of the biggest power forwards in the 2000s in the National Hockey League. His career was actually ended by concussions. And I met him, and I understood how to help him go through his trials and tribulations with it. And as our journey continued, we wrote a book called Concussed in 2010. It became kind of the Bible for a lot of players, because it wasn't a medical book. It was more about the emotional part of a concussion, this dark space that you're in. And it became the Bible for a lot of players, understanding you were not alone. And we always think in concussion world, you mentioned it's not only sport. It can happen. It's 24/7. You could slip down the steps. You could be on a swing set. You could be on a bike, a skateboard, an elderly person falling in the bathtub, which happened to my mother. So I experienced that. The most important thing about concussions, and after we wrote the book, and we are now in a rewrite, I'm actually trying my damnedest to get it out in the next 3 months. It's a tough thing if you've ever written a book, especially with crayons. It's really tough to put it together, and we're still working on it. But what came from that was the understanding of cause, effect, and consequences of the injury. And if I could say anything more than that from Keith and myself, when we wrote the book Concussed, we're now calling it Concussed, Understanding the Invisible Injury, because it is invisible. You've been around people, you've probably been yourself having a few concussions, not really knowing what it is. And so what this drive is for Stop Concussions, with so many good people in your country, Dr. Michael Bookland in Sydney, Dr. Rowena Mobbs, Alan Pierce, an incredible researcher in your country. They're working so diligently to understand it, because, the epidemic, and I'm going to call it an epidemic with concussions in your sport of rugby, AFL, cricket, all these games that you play. It's not about the contact. It's about incidental body shakings. And I think that's what's really important. We don't want the parents or the coaches or the administrators to be doctors. We just need to make them aware of what the signs and symptoms are of concussions. And if somebody is suffering from any of those, pull them out of sport. And that's what Stop Concussions is about, will continue to be about. And hopefully when we get our second book out, it'll be more about that, educating all of us about those very important parts of it.
Yeah. Well, here's the current book, Concussed. There it is there in the background. We'll just leave it there in the background. For now, but it's a good read. It's very much, it's an in-depth kind of read for someone that's hasn't been around concussions and things like that, and some things need to be made quite simple, which we're incredibly more aware of now, I think, in the world of concussions. But
in that title, it said sports-related head injuries, and we missed the boat a little bit. Obviously, you see a hockey helmet. We eat, sleep, and drink ice hockey, and there it is right there, prevention, coping, and real stories. We had about 20 stories of athletes, and I want to tell you one really quick story. People got a chance to write in, and after people had read the book, I got a phone call from a lady in Seattle, in Washington, and she was telling me her story. She's not in the book. I forget her name, and the actual name's not so important, but the story was she was in bed. I may have told you the story, but your listeners will find this. It's actually funny, but in a negative way. But it was a learning moment for all of us. You know, these little Buddhas, look like our bodies right now. You get these little Buddhas. Over top of this young lady's bed was a shelf, and she had all her travels, and she had got a Buddha on her trip, and she had it on a shelf. And she was living in an apartment, and next door, the young couple played loud music with huge bass. And I guess over the years, Mr. Buddha kind of walked the plank, and one night it fell off the shelf and landed and popped her in the head. And that was it. 5-year journey for her to deal with concussions. And that was just a complete freak accident. There's so many stories like that are out there. So now on the second version of Concussed, we want to understanding the invisible injury, because you can't see it, you can't touch it, you can't taste it. It's there, it's prevalent, and only you can allow us to understand what you're going through, because sometimes we just look, hey, he's healthy, she's healthy, there's nothing wrong with him. That's a headache. Just take a couple aspirins and get going. And that's our next journey, to really normalize it, if I could even use that term. Make it understood. It's not the professional athlete. It's not that AFL that you see on a Saturday, Sunday playing their game and getting knocked out. It's 24/7 around all of us, whether you're young, old, your sister, your daughter, your mother, your grandmother, your grandson, your grandfather. Any one of us at any time can have this happen. Car accidents, slip and falls, all these things can create concussion-like symptoms, and that's where we need to have people like Scott Haller and Alan Pierce, who I'd mentioned, Luke Fuller, who's coming on board, to talk about this to the normal person, not that elite athlete, that concussions are real, they're around us at all times, and we have to take them very, very serious. It's not like breaking your leg, Aaron. You break a leg, you put a cast on it. We generally know it's 4 to 6 weeks. It should heal. The brain's not like that. And God gave us the greatest gift in life is our child's brain. And we, as the adults in the picture, have to understand we are there to protect it. So that's why it's so important to educate yourself on concussions, and shows like this allowing me to speak about it certainly helps that.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Gooch. All right, we're not going to go for too much longer, because it sounds like we're going to have to do part 2, 3, and 4, which is always part of our journey, Gooch. Always there's a script, but we're never on it. So we've touched on many topics tonight in amongst the journey, but mental health being one that's close to all of our hearts, that we want to normalize that discussion. And we want to lose all those connotations around the negative aspects of mental health. We understand they're there and we want to work through them. And the way we work through them is to talk about it and talk about those kind of moments. So is there one topic kind of in particular that we kind of want to finish on from your end, just on mental health and the journey and part of life that's probably relevant for kind of your mindset where you're thinking right now?
Well, the reason why we touched upon concussions a little bit, we all know that concussions change the makeup of our brain, and that can create obviously mental health issues. There's a long list of diseases and complications that come from concussions. One of them is mental health. And I got the opportunity to watch Paul Rosen do his speech the other day. It was absolutely incredible under the Aurora Tigers, Jim Thompson, who himself has suffered several concussions and dealt with mental health issues, drugs and alcohol and addictions. It's never give up. Paul Rosen wrote a book, twice attempting suicide. Twice I've been there to hopefully help him stay on the planet. I think what's important of our conversation, and you're right, we could write volumes, even with yourself. You know, you've had some struggles. I've had some struggles. I think it's important to realize you're not alone, and that's what mental health does to you. It engulfs you and captures you. And there's a video documentary that's coming out eventually. One of my sister's girlfriends, Donna McCarthy, had videotaped a lot of my sister's trials and tribulations. She got permission to do it from my sister. And there's one scene of her walking down and the video camera's on her and talking about her addiction and her mental health status. And the words, when you listen to this person talk about what she's almost third party, but it's her. And she's walking, and she said, in it, mental health really isolates you from yourself. And I just happened to get a best friend, and my best friend became a bottle of vodka. It was the only thing that kept me going every day. It's the only thing that I knew when I drank, I would forget everything around me. And as she's walking down the street, she's telling it with a straight face, with no tears, no emotions, just basically saying these things. And I think that's the key to this, to understand that mental health is a disease. We have to treat it as a disease. We cannot step away from it. If you're dealing with somebody with mental health, be there, listen. That's the most important thing when it comes to mental health. It's not telling them what to do. It's listening and allowing them to share their story. Allow them to maybe portray the inner weakness or the inner demons that are there. And that's one thing I didn't realize with mental health with my sister, because she had two beautiful daughters, two beautiful kids, a son and a daughter, a wonderful life, millions of dollars, wonderful homes. And yet this girl ended up being on the street, losing custody to her two children. And I would always show her the pictures of her son and daughter and say, is that not enough? Why can't you stop? Why can't you stop? And once she was gone, I understood why she couldn't stop, because it was an illness. So in ending, you're not alone. There are people like Aaron, people like all these great Pete Bombachi with the Genwell Project, who's always there. If you're struggling, ask for help. Do not be afraid to ask for help. There are so many people that are there in your corner that you may not even realize. Think about this for 1 second, and I'll leave it with this thought. I'm a giving person. My mother had taught me to give. If I have $1, if you have 25 cents over, give it to somebody that maybe can't have the ability to make that 25 cents. So I go through life. If I see a gentleman or somebody that's on the street, I always give whatever I can. 10 cents, 20 cents, maybe it's $1. And I had one of my friends say to me once, Gooch, why do you do that? These, they've got enough money. They'll find a way. And I said, listen, I lived it through my sister. That 25 cents may help them stay alive for one more day. And if they stay alive for one more day, that person that can change their life may be just around the corner. So if we can keep them propped up and allows them to find a way, find a pathway to get out of where they're at, man, it's a well spent 25 cents. So in closing, do not be afraid to ask for help, and certainly don't be afraid to give the help, because we all need it. And it goes back to that one moment that we started it all on. It's a hug. You don't know what that person's going through. You don't know that hug may be that bridge to a better life, or that hello, how are you? If you've had bad experiences with friends, families, your mother, your father, stop it all. We see what's going on around this world with war and destruction. Take the time out for somebody that you're missing and you loved, and you maybe had that argument. Pick this up, use it as a tool to make amends. Apologize, or allow them to apologize, because life's short. We both know that. And I think it's important to remember that.
Yep. Incredibly well finished for us, Gooch, for tonight. I urge everyone coming into this Christmas period to just reach out to as many people as you can. That's all I'm asking you to do. Gooch, you said it beautifully on a podcast a while ago, is the challenge for tomorrow is to pick up the phone and call at least 5 people that you haven't had a chat to for a while. I absolutely love that. And every time I do it, I think of you, Gooch. And half the time I call you, but that's a good thing. But call people you haven't spoken to for a while, say good day. And it just may be the difference sometimes, hearing a voice. It may be a voice. Please leave a voicemail too, if you can.
Yep.
At least let them hear a voice.
Yep.
Please don't just send a text message. Do that. Hopefully you get a call back. And if you don't, please call them back or ask someone else, have they spoken to them? And just let's check in on people between now and Christmas and make sure everyone's in a better place than they were yesterday. That's the most important part. A big smile, a hug, and a say good day. And is there anything we can do to make your life just that one little moment better? So thanks for joining me tonight, Gooch. We will do this again very shortly. We'll invite a few guests on. We're going to interview a few people together. Let's do that for a little while.
Looking forward to
some
it.
fun. Bring the countries together. All right, Gooch. Thanks for joining me on episode 165 of So What's Been Happening. Never forget Gooch Live and the great Kerry Goulet. Please check out Kerry's great work with Stop Concussions and multiple works and charities that he does. Also on Facebook, jump on and check out the Gooch Live. It's a funny listen, that's for sure. If you've even know nothing about hockey, it's a classic case of anyone that loves sport. There's always the rivalry, and that's the most beautiful part. That doesn't matter what the sport is. And let's face it, Aussies will bet on and discuss anything in relation to sport and jump on. So
I think it's more
team for everyone.
I think it's more the producer watching me produce the show is probably comical in itself. Hey, listen, thank you, Aaron, for allowing me to spend a few minutes with you. I know we're over an hour. You and I could chat for days. Look forward to it. So what's been happening? You've done an amazing job, and keep doing what you do, buddy. One life at a time. We're saving them.
Thanks, Gooch. And look forward to chatting to Jack Hanley, the running man, the crazy running man, very shortly.
Me too.
See you out there.
Keep me in posted on him. I love it.
Will do.
See you, buddy.